Welcome back. This is Margaret Ochsner from Forerunners International on the Gold Coast in Australia, and this is the second session when I'll be teaching on fear, and today we're going to be looking at the roots and the effects of fear in our lives. The dictionary definition of fear is that it's a painful emotion excited by apprehension or impending danger or dread. A painful emotion excited by apprehension or impending danger or dread. And there are many root causes. One of the main ones is generational iniquities. It can come down, fear can come down the family line and land on you. And if you're brought up in an environment of fear, it becomes a familiar spirit around your life, and it can condition you, and it can start to work out in your life, or otherwise it can be attracted to you. It keeps on attracting to you. Another route where it comes in is any personal involvement that you've had with occult or that's been in the generational line. It can come from curses or pronouncements against you. These can come sometimes from witchcraft or involvement of family in Freemasonry. Where there's been rejection, fears of all kinds will come in, including fear of further rejection. Fear can often be imparted even in the womb to the baby if the mother is carrying fear herself. Fighting, arguing, shouting, which is actually verbal abuse, which God hates, even when the baby's in the womb. If there's been arguments between the parents, even that can affect the baby in the womb or in early childhood. A child is not conditioned for that, doesn't have the framework to deal with those things. Difficult labour or traumatic birth can cause fear to come into a child, especially if the birth has been prolonged and the child feels trapped. Where a child is adopted, there will always be fear. When it's separated from its natural mother, separation anxiety, fear and insecurity can come in. Any form of violence, abuse or cruelty always causes fear, and traumatic events or accidents can cause fear. Unfairness or injustice is another cause. Control is one of the main causes of fear. Control is an antichrist spirit. God has given us free will power of choice. We're not meant to be controlled. But a lot of people control out of fear and insecurity. If they can control their environment or those around them, it makes them feel safer. But control seeds fear into the person that they do control. It causes that person to feel fearful, insecure, often even intimidated, confused or shut down. And God doesn't want his children intimidated and confused and shut down. It's another main root of fear. Lack of faith and trust in God can cause fear, often because we've had a wrong image of God. So many people think that God is remote. They think he's distant, or they think he's harsh, punishing God. Some people feel he's unfair, that he has favourites, and blame him for all sorts of things that aren't his fault. So a wrong image of God can also cause fear. The reality we have of God and of ourselves, the image we have of God and ourselves, so affects the reality we live in. We can learn fear. It can be a learned emotion. And where it's given rights, the enemy tends to compound it time and time again. When we're tracked by negativity or lies, those things can also cause fear. Often lies and fear are very deeply entwined. They often go together. So some of the effects of fear. It usually causes us to withdraw, to shut down and even to hide. Often a person feels, I can't do things. They feel inadequate. They feel incapable or unable to push through. Their perception is valid to them, it's very real to them. But even those words, I can't, can give the enemy access and can stop them doing what they should be able to do. They often, if a person is bound by fear, they avoid certain situations, people or places, etc. at all costs. They'll often try to keep everything minimal so that they won't be challenged. It can cause a person to put coping mechanisms into place and to build even false personas around their life that they operate out of. They'll build a protector persona or a controlling one just as a protection, because underneath they feel so fearful. It can even cause a timid persona to develop. It can cause fragmentation of the soul. A person can dissociate because of the pain or the hurt that they have felt. It can cause those pathways in the brain to be changed and the hormone and chemical imbalance. It can totally paralyse you emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally. And it's often one of the main causes of depression, and it can result in many serious physical illnesses as well. So it is a totally devastating, crippling emotion. There are many words associated with fear. Worry, for example. But God commands us not to worry, especially in Matthew 6. He says, "Don't I see every sparrow that fall? Don't I clothe the fowls of the field? Aren't you more precious than they?" And what does worry do? It doesn't solve anything. It often just finishes up giving us stomach ulcers. So there's not much point in worrying. He commands us, anxiety is another word associated with fear, and God commands us not to be anxious. Philippians 4 verse 12, he says, "Be anxious for nothing, but in prayer and supplication present your requests to God with thanksgiving." If God is large and in charge and for us, and he is, why are we anxious? Shock and trauma, even from the past, can cause fear. Other words associated are tension, timidity, fright, panic. Panic will often cause even dry mouth or cause you to feel frozen. Apprehension, paranoia, phobias. There are phobias of many types, and that really enslaves you. Phobias can totally paralyse you, where you work all the time at trying to avoid things that will cause you to feel that way. And there can be irrational and obsessive fears. There are many phobias, but some of the main ones are agoraphobia, which is a fear of open spaces, of crowds, or of leaving a safe place. Claustrophobia, which is a fear of small or confined places. There can be monophobia, which is a fear of being alone or being oneself. There can be social phobias, being the centre of attention. Of course, it can cause embarrassment. Arachnophobia is a common one, which is a fear of spiders. There can be astrophobia, a fear of thunder and lightning. Insectophobia, which naturally is a phobia of insects. There's mysophobia, which is a fear of germs and dirt. And noceophobia, which is a fear of needles. Nyclophobia, a fear of the dark or the night. There are many fears and phobias. Some of the most common, other common ones are fear of water. There can be a fear of heights, of flying, a fear of snakes, of mice, of dogs, of cockroaches. There could be a fear of injustice, a fear of people's judgments, a fear of punishment, a fear of relating sometimes, fear of intimacy. There can be a fear of life or a fear of death. A lot of people have a fear of authority figures. Some have fear of men because of what has happened to them through men. There can be a fear of women, a fear of failure, even a fear of success because it's so foreign to us. There can be a fear of never making it, a fear of abandonment, a fear of not being accepted or liked. A fear of people's opinions is a very common one, a fear of their reactions or their judgments. There can be a fear that good things won't last, fear of further rejection, fear of the future, even fear of losing their salvation. There are many more. The enemy is a dirty fighter. He doesn't play fair. He gets at us when we're down, and he knows our weak points. And when we step back, he steps forward. He's a bully. He's a liar. He's a deceiver. And he reinforces our belief systems all the time. Sometimes we think something is the truth, but it's a lie. That's deception, one of the main ploys of the enemy. Or sometimes it seems as if something could be the truth, but we're not sure. It allows doubt and unbelief in, which cancels faith. And sometimes we're not sure what we think. There can be total confusion. All of these things give the enemy access. Lies and fears are the two of the main areas where he attacks us most, and they are so devastating. In the next session, we're going to look at how we can walk free of all of these things, because there is total freedom in Christ Jesus.